my, what a cliffhanger this one is, and is going to be. You've heard about the course, you've heard about the tyres, you've heard about the drivers, you've heard about Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard, Damon Hill. What you haven't heard about is looking at that map on the extreme right-hand side, that very sharp corner is La Source. First gear, 35 miles an hour, and where the letter F is where the grid is. It's a very, very short distance to La Source, and they will all arrive there in one mighty 22-car lump, all pushing and striving, jostling for position to try and get ahead of the man in front. If you can gain places at the start, you can make your race or mar your race. And there on the front row of the grid, nearest that white line, of course, Mika Häkkinen starting in pole position for the 9th time in 13 races this year. 3 to go. His teammate David Coulthard alongside him. Damon Hill, a magnificent third, the highest he's been for Jordan, and just ahead of Michael Schumacher, who's won here 4 times, has won here 5 times actually, and one of them was disallowed. What do you think is going to happen, Martin?
Well, for starters, it was significant that you saw the Mercedes-Benz safety car going around the track a few seconds ago, so it will definitely not be a pace car start as they had here last year. If you remember, it rained heavily just before the race started, and they had to start it with great caution. They've decided not to do that. It's been a big decision, just been wandering around the front end of the grid, and really there's a lot of tension down there, whether they go for intermediate tyres or whether they go for the full wets. My guess is that the Goodyear intermediate is probably slightly better. They may opt for that, they may take a gamble. I think the 2 guys on the front row will go for the full wets. We understand, of course, that Damon Hill is on the full wet tyre. It's a track where you can lose so much time. There's so many high-speed corners leading into long straights if you're on the wrong tyres. Remember, on the 2nd lap of the race last year, Schumacher on intermediates was 10 seconds faster on that lap than the next fastest man, which was Jacques Villeneuve. So you can quite clearly see how critical that decision is. But at the same time, if you just touch one of those painted white lines or the painted curbs, they're highly glossed, or you lock a brake, you can be in the gravel trap, and you're certainly not going to score any points from there. So it's a really tough decision. It's the hardest decision you ever have to take as a Grand Prix driver sitting on the grid. You get all of the help you can from your engineer, your team boss, but at the end of the day, you're the one that's got to report back from having left the pits to form up on the grid, how much standing water there is, and how good the drainage is, how good your car feels, what's your confidence level, have you decided to stop once or twice with your fuel strategy, where are you on the grid, all of those factors. That's a full wet tyre there on the back of the McLaren. All of those factors you try to put in and take your best guess, and that's not got a lot of grooves in, Murray, has it?
But Michael Schumacher, this could make the race. Michael Schumacher starting on Goodyear intermediates as he did last year, and that was the brilliant decision that Schumacher made at the very last moment, which undoubtedly won him the Belgian Grand Prix last year. But the joker in the pack is very much Damon Hill in the yellow Jordan behind Mika Häkkinen on the left-hand side of the grid as you look at it, as they clear the grid now for the first of 45 laps. The first lap, of course, is going to be the formation lap. The race lap is 44, the race distance is 44 laps. David Coulthard there went off this morning, as he has done before in the warm-up period. Drove into the tyre wall, damaged the nose of the McLaren, but that's all history. McLaren leads away with Mika Häkkinen, David Coulthard, there's Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher. The 2 Ferraris went very well in the warm-up this morning in conditions identical to this. Michael Schumacher was 1.3 seconds faster than Mika Häkkinen, who was 3rd, and Eddie Irvine in the 2nd Ferrari was 0.8 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher, but 2nd fastest. And just look at those conditions, driving into a solid wall of spray.
Yes, it's actually not too bad at the moment, but bad enough that you'll want to pull out and try to get some kind of visibility at high speed. then as you brake down into the corner, the spray fades down and suddenly your whole world lights up. But if there's a lot of standing water and you're following another car closely, sometimes you can't even see your own steering wheel. James, what can you tell us about the tyre choices?
Well, Martin, just before they went off, I noticed that Villeneuve-Lacey and definitely Michael Schumacher of the Goodyear runners are on the intermediate tyres. Eddie Irvine's on the full wets, and so is Damon Hill. And something, apparently there's a problem with the McLaren team. We're just trying to check out what that is. Something seems to have gone a bit wrong with one of the cars. Something may have come off. I'm just going to check that in a second. But looked to me as though both the McLarens are on the wet Bridgestone tyre. So conservative from some of them, and Schumacher obviously going for it on the intermediates.
Yeah, and Schumacher is the man who can get the job done on intermediates in these weather conditions. That's Giancarlo Fisichella, who was second last year in the Benetton, and he's going to be starting from 7th place on the grid. Now, this circuit is absolutely superb. It's got gradient, it's got 200-mile-an-hour straight, it's got hairpins, it's got everything.
Yes, we're led to believe that Damon has radioed back to his pits to tell them that something fell off one of the McLarens, whether it was a cover or something like that. We'll have to wait and see whether it was anything at all, because we've already said it's so difficult to see in these conditions. But at the moment it's really not too bad. I have to say I can understand why they're not starting this race under the safety car, because visibility is just about bearable and there's not a lot of standing water. I went round in an old-timer W196 Mercedes-Benz an hour or so ago, and there is some standing water in small patches, but not enough to get these cars up on top of the water and aquaplaning. So I think from a safety point of view, a normal start is perfectly acceptable.
Now, it's reasonable to expect in these conditions that the two McLarens on the full wet weather tyres with the maximum depth grooves to clear water off the track will sprint away, maybe even from Michael Schumacher. Remember, Damon Hill, as far as we know, is on wet weather tyres too. But if Schumacher has got it right, and it does start to dry out a bit, and it is brightening a little, the rain is still falling, the track is very wet, but it is brightening and might clear up a bit, then Schumacher could be quids in.
Well, looking at the circuit conditions, I think anybody who's currently got intermediate bolted onto his car is going to be feeling pretty pleased with himself.
Well, we know the answer for that. He hasn't, Mika Häkkinen.
Look at Häkkinen's eyes, just staring there as he's just watching the road closely and then going over to find his grid slot. I'm expecting Michael Schumacher to have a massive attempt to get Damon Hill dispatched so he can chase after those McLarens as soon as possible.
As ever, watch the lights, 5 on, and then they will all go out. A pause of up to 3 seconds, 44 laps, the Belgian Grand Prix, the race which is crucial to the World Championship. Häkkinen on the left, Coulthard on the right. Yes, yes, it's go! And Coulthard drags. Häkkinen gets away well. Look at Eddie Irvine coming up on the inside. Villeneuve goes up into 2nd position. Schumacher is down into about 6th position. Bad start by the Ferrari. Great start by Eddie Irvine. Villeneuve, look at Villeneuve, and into the wall. Who was that?
Coulthard in the wall.
David Coulthard into the wall. Will stop the race.
They'll have to red flag
this. Terrible. Look, this is quite appalling. This is the worst start for a Grand Prix that I have ever seen in the whole of my life.
Total carnage. David Coulthard went off up the hill very early on, and then they just all piled into him in the poor visibility, and they have no ability to stop. The tyres are cold, and everything locks up, and he just slides straight into the accident.
Yeah, the race stopped, of course. Mika Salo, you saw, walk away, and he had a gigantic crash yesterday. Well, it's going to take an enormous time to clear all this lot up. Drivers will be rushing back now to the pits, and that's Jos Verstappen down there. Barrichello, I apologise. Well, running back, there's Mika Salo in the black overalls, and getting his steering wheel off there was Esteban Tuero. That's Takagi in the green helmet, and of course they're running back now to get into their spare cars, which won't necessarily have been set up, and if 2 cars in the same team have been damaged, it's quite conceivable that one of them won't be able to start.
Yes, I think they're trying to...
Eddie Irvine limping, you see, on the left. And the two Prost drivers, that's Olivier Panis, and there's Barrichello.
Barrichello trying to say, look, I'm okay, I was holding my arm, but there's something red on the back of his overalls. Look, I don't know what that might be. I don't think it's blood, but there's something very much red on there. The two Prost both in the action, but Barrichello, they're saying, look, no, I'm fine, I want to get back and get into the spare car. But that is an incredible carnage. I think it started with David Coulthard getting on the power and losing the back end straight into the wall.
That's Coulthard's car.
But that was hit several times, Murray, after he hit the wall. Now watch it now, look, David Coulthard over on the your right of the picture, swings across and just lights up the rear wheels, had a big frontal impact into the wall anyway. And now the real action starts. David goes over to the other side, and then in the middle somebody's braking. Eddie Irvine gets caught up in the Benetton, and they just keep smashing into each other. Look at Salo's car, his second big accident of the weekend, and then after that, total carnage. Nothing they can do. But Rosset just smashing into the back of the lot of them. Big accident.
Damon Hill got through all that lot all right. You see there is Tuero in the background. The problem is, of course, when you're going at that speed on a slippery track and you've got no traction at all and a lot of power going through, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it.
The two Prost drivers talking to each other as they're climbing up the hill. I'd be inclined to be the first one back to the pits and jump in one of them. I had this situation once at Brabham. You've got to get back and be the first one there. There's only one spare car.
The spare Prost is actually set up for Jarno Trulli, who started higher on the grid. He started from 13th place on the grid, and so Olivier Panis, who was 15th, probably won't have first claim.
And I doubt they'll give Irvine the spare